Joyful blessings. This is Kaylin Castell, and I am so delighted to share with you about the upcoming Cancer new moon on June 25th, 2025, seeding intentions for healthy global family. Uh, Something to keep in mind is that the Cancer mysteries really remind us that family is a link to our past and a bridge to our future. And we're not just talking about our blood family, but also our soul family. And this is an out of bounds moon, so it is outside the boundaries of our everyday reality and opportunity to seed intentions for a healthy global family in ways that maybe perhaps we've never experienced before. So, as I like to do with the June, with any new moon, energy is to honor Jamie Sams in her brilliant book, The 13 Original Clan Mothers, and how this is the clan mother of the storyteller. And this is the invocation that Jamie shares in her book. Tell me a story, sweet mother, of the ancestors and their days, of how they walked with beauty, learning the medicine ways. As you relate the stories, I'm allowed to see the importance of every lesson and how it applies to me. Through another's example, I share the laughter and the tears. Through another's experience, I learned how love can conquer fear. Together, we can journey through those other times, reclaiming all the wisdom of the legacies left behind. I feel like this is really brilliant because in June, we can have a Gemini new moon or we can have a Cancer full moon. And this really speaks to both the storyteller being the Gemini energy and also this idea of how we learn through each other, from each other, and through the power of love, how the power of love for the family, for the tribe, for the community. And she also tells us that the storyteller is guardian of the medicine stories, keeper of Heyoka medicine and humor, not to take ourselves so seriously. Remember to have fun and play. She teaches without shaming or blaming. This is so important, as I know many of you who are listening to this may have had the experience of being raised by parents who thought the best way to raise children was by shaming them and blaming them. And I know that was my experience, and moving beyond that and finding new ways to really be present for whatever the teachings are in ways that are loving and kind. That's what this new moon is all about. She speaks from personal experience and truth, and she teaches us to see and express magic. So this is what we can tune into. These are some of the energies we can tune into with this new moon. And of course, there's much more than that, and we're going to look at it. And one of the things that I'm really feeling into around the essence of Cancer right now is how it's about creating nurturing safe space for all who are part of the family, either by blood or by soul connection. And ultimately we are all family. We are all connected, but then of course there's the ones that we experience in a more day-to-day basis, the people, the family, the actual family. Sometimes there are divisions that happen in family, the disconnections that happen in family. I know I've experienced that, and I'm sure many others have experienced that. And that sometimes we feel more at home and more like we're with our family when we're with people of like mind, of like heart, of like energy. So the question we might ask during this new moon, and what that'll help us come up with the intentions are that we'd like to energize for this time, is how do we create safety and a nurturing, supportive environment for the children and the child within, for everyone within the community, for all of us to feel that we are safe to be who we are. This is so important, and something that isn't necessarily playing out well on the world stage and hasn't for eons of time. But we can definitely see that it's not happening right now necessarily, but it begins with us. So if we are being able to create that safe space for ourselves and for each other and for those around us, then then the power of what we're creating is going to magnify. And these seeds are being planted here at this out of bounds, outside the boundaries of the old, and put into motion in a way that maybe we can't even quite imagine now. And I was really inspired to bring in the dolphins because they create ways of being together in community that are just so amazing. And they maintain connections with their mothers and family members throughout their lives. They form lifelong relationships with specific individuals, even those outside of their immediate family. And dolphins with calves frequently share caregiver responsibilities. They help each other to nurture each other's calves, each other's children. And they help each other to nurse, protect, and teach survival skills to the young. That it reminds us of that saying, "It takes a village." Well, it takes a dolphin pod. It takes more than one. It's something that we haven't really done well in the last few centuries of time, the last minute, at least in recorded history, as far as we can tell. So if we're thinking about healthy group dynamics in the Cancer realm, the dolphins can really give us a sense of what that's about. So they demonstrate how to create a sense of safety, belonging, and support. And that's the essence of Cancer. The Cancer mysteries is how do we create a sense of safety, belonging, and support. And belonging, not fitting in, not creating all these rules that people have to fit into, but belonging by being able to be authentically who you are. And being seen and valued and accepted and supported for who you truly are and not who the greater collective says you should be based on old, outdated modes of what's the standards, I suppose, I guess, that all that's not necessarily helpful any longer, letting those things go so that we can bring in the new ways of creating safety and belonging and support. And also dolphins work together. They hunt, they migrate and protect themselves from predators. They do this in pods, or we could say their tribal culture, or their immediate way of being. So dolphin pods is what it's called by our current standards. So anyway, they also support the vulnerable dolphins, and they support the injured and sick, and the ones that are not as able to take care of themselves. And this is something that ideally we would be doing in our culture. It seems to be that that's being torn away more and more. But it's how do we support one another? How are we there to create safety and support for all the members of our tribe or our pod, whatever that might look like? Now, they also have complex social structures. So there are various types of pods. There's the mothers and the calves. So they call them the nursery groups. And then there's the juvenile pods and the bachelor pods. And they can fluctuate and join or split depending on circumstances. Now, dolphin pods tend to be as many as 30 and as few as two. Two dolphins can create a pod, and then there's often more that are in the pod, but 30 is a lot. And then sometimes they have super pods where there's like hundreds or thousands of dolphins that come together for a short period of time and then they go and do their own thing. But the thing that's really amazing is the wisdom and legacy aspect of the dolphins, and actually what we would really want to have as part of our way of being with one another. They learn from their elders and from each other, passing down knowledge and skills through generations. And dolphin pods adapt to changing environments and social circumstances, forming new relationships and adjusting their group dynamics as needed. Dolphin pods are a great example of healthy Cancer mysteries in creating new ways of being with family and tribe that are nurturing, sustainable, wise, and safe for everyone. So these are the things that it's just amazing, and how they look at how they are leaping together, uh, and they're in sync with one another. They are in harmony. They are vibrating at the same level. And this is something that we ideally do uh, learn how to do with each other on the planet. So here's a look. We have the sky map of what's happening with this new moon. The new moon is way out of bounds, way above the ecliptic where the sun is. Um, it's going to be 28 degrees south in 16 minutes. And that's pretty much the furthest it's going to get, although right before the exact new moon, it goes to 28, 24, and then it's starting to come back a little bit. And we can see here that the moon is goes out of bounds on June 23rd. This is Greenwich time. But by midnight on the 23rd, it's already 24 degrees, and 23 and a half degrees is as far as the sun can go. I will see that in a moment. And then on the new moon, it's going to be 28:16. So sometime between 6 a.m. and 12 p.m. Well, this chart is for 3:32 a.m. Pacific time, uh, where the exact new moon is happening in Tucson, where I live. Anyway, we can see that the sun and the moon are at 4 degrees Cancer. Jupiter is at 3.5 degrees Cancer, super close to the new moon and the sun, the moon and the sun at the time of this new moon. And there's also a star that we're going to look at in a moment, but it's pretty spectacular. And it's being squared by Saturn and Neptune. The sun, moon, and Jupiter are still in square to these two planets that have just entered the Aries realm and are activating this Aries realm. In addition to that, we have Eris and Chiron, and I will put links to the videos I've done on Eris and Chiron and their conjunction and what's happening with them. It's been since 1971, the last time they came together like this, 1971 to 1972, and now it's 2025 to 2026. There'll be another, there was an exact Eris-Chiron conjunction in May of 2025, another one in October, and then I think the last one's in March of 2026. And something similar happened in 1971 and 72. And they happen to be squaring Mercury. So what are the wounds that we're healing around how we communicate and how we creatively express? And how do we feel safe expressing who we are? And Eris really illuminating the places where maybe we're afraid to express who we are, or we feel like we haven't been invited to, that our whatever contribution we have isn't necessarily wanted. So how are we moving past that? How are we maybe feeling that we could maybe feel that's true, but still find a way to express what's true, what's our opportunity, um, what's ours to share, what's ours to communicate, what's ours to express, and healing the wounds that are in the way of that, so that we can do that at this Cancer new moon. It's pretty exciting. So here is a full star map of the what's going on with this, and then as I've talked about before, the summer solstice. I'll put the link to the video, a short video I did on that. The galactic cross at the galactic edge at the center of the sacred hoop of stars, and where the June solstice sun rises, it's winter solstice in the southern hemisphere, summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, and that the sun moon is right at the foot of the twins. And this star is called Propus at 3 Cancer 47. So Jupiter is just like right with this star. Very powerful. And we can see that Mercury's at 13 degrees Leo, just beyond, I'm going to show the sacred hoop in a moment, but it's just beyond the sacred hoop, has just moved into Leo not too long before the exact new moon. And then again, here is Orion. And on the hand of Orion, when the sun is at the June solstice, marking something that many cultures saw as a shift. And it could be the high man, Orion, or the high woman, depending on how you want to look at it and what are we saying that happens to be. Again, this blue line is the plane of the galaxy, and the green line is the plane of our solar system, and they cross here at the edge of the galaxy, and that's where the solstices happen to be. This June solstice happens to be now from at least 1962 to 2070. It's a powerful activation that's been taking place. Now, also looking at the nakshatra, and again, nakshatras are how far the moon moves in a day, which is around 12 to 13 degrees a day, and sometimes a little faster, sometimes a little slower. And so the nakshatras were created based on how far the moon would move in a day. So here's the new moon happening in this nakshatra called Ardha, and it has to do with the symbol down in here. It looks like a teardrop. And also, it's in the constellation of the twins. It's just moving into the twins. So it's the star of emotion, the power to feel and act. And that is so much the Cancer mysteries, to feel and then to take action. It can be also an energy that's stormy and passionate and drive for expression and understanding. And the symbol really combines two emblems, the diamond and the raindrop or teardrop, and together they provide a visual description of artist's theme of growth and renewal through chaos and turbulence. So growth and renewal comes out of chaos and turbulence, and we often forget that because chaos and turbulence is not comfortable. And it can, when we're in chaos and turbulence, it can feel like that's the opposite of what's happening. But growth and renewal is the end result of that. So if we can keep that in mind and stay connected to that possibility. So this is the moon in this nakshatra, moving through this nakshatra at this new moon with Jupiter also here, very powerful, and with the star Propus, um, that this red star with the sun and with Jupiter here, marking the foot of Castor. Castor is one of the twins of Castor and Pollux, and how we know them. Now, the twins aren't necessarily two male entities. In many cultures, they were male and female. So we've inherited these stories and we tend to, what's the new story? How are we going to create a new story around the divine feminine and divine masculine equal? And one of the things I always find interesting when there are planets going through the twins and talking about the twins is that I had boy-girl twins 40 years ago. And so I feel like I have a connection to it. I can't always articulate exactly what that is, but to have that masculine feminine expression in and how they're very close. They're very they can trigger each other, they can have their challenges, but they learn a lot from each other, and it's just amazing to be witness to that. So the this star with Jupiter and the new moon is basically saying that this is a time to put our best foot forward and to stand for what we know is just and true. So what is just? What is true? What is it that how are we creating a more a safe way for people to be who they are, to be exactly what's theirs authentically to express? And how do we create the space for that to happen for each of us personally and for each of us collectively? So as the moon is going beyond the boundaries of the sun, it is a wild card and has been known to disrupt what is known. And so interesting that the star Propus is also connected to disruption and chaos, as is Eris, this where Chiron and Eris are hanging out in square to Mercury at this new moon. So it just kind of really suggests that there could be a lot of chaos happening. And it's out of bounds. So it's outside the boundaries of our ordinary everyday reality, expanding possibilities in extraordinary ways. And so here's how we know that equinoxes, the sun rises and sets due east and due west. At the June solstice, it's furthest north, and at the December solstice, it's furthest south. But planets can go beyond that point, and if they go beyond the point, rising and setting on the horizon further than where the sun can go, that's considered the out of bounds, outside the boundaries of everyday reality. And so, if you want to be able to calculate your out of bounds planets, I will put this link in the show notes so you can have the ability to do that. Now, this is the other thing that's just so amazing about this is that the sun at the June solstice, when it's at zero Cancer, is right on this cross at the galactic edge on the hand of the high man or the high woman, Orion, whatever you want to call this part of the sky. And this was symbolic to many ancient cultures of being a shift in a great age or a great wheel, the great wheel of time. There's a shifting in the great wheel of time. And at the center point of the galactic, of the sacred hoop of stars. So the Pleiades is around 29 Taurus, 0 Gemini, Uranus, and Sedna are here currently. Um, uh, Uranus will enter 0 Gemini on July 7th, so it's going to be very much it's entering the sacred hoop. And then Capella in Auriga, Castor and Pollux in the twins, Procyon in Canis Major, Sirius, the brightest star in our sky. And there's a lot going on with Sirius. I will share more about that in another video. And then back to Rigel. It kind of squeezes in here a little bit, but basically it looks like a hoop of stars in the sky. Now, what's interesting is around 198 in the current era, the sun at the June solstice, the longest day and the shortest night in the northern hemisphere, opposite in the southern hemisphere, and was precessing or moving back into the sacred hoop of stars. Now it's at the cross point, so about 1800 years. It's been in the sacred hoop, and it's going to be in the sacred hoop for another 2,160 years till it gets back towards the Pleiades. And this is why we have the shift of the seasonal signs through the constellations, and that the seasonal sign of Cancer overlays the twins currently. The seasonal sign of Gemini overlays the bull currently. And when we can really understand that these are two separate things going on, and how do we bring our understanding of them back together? So the Lakota and other native tribes felt it was auspicious and worth noting when any visible planets were passing through the sacred hoop. So here we have the June solstice. The sun is currently here. The new moon is here. The moon is here with Jupiter. Jupiter is going to be inside the hoop, what has been inside the hoop all last year. And again, into 2025, it's going to station retrograde at 25 degrees Cancer. And that's the position of Procyon or Procyon. So it means that it'll be exiting the sacred hoop. But since it's going retrograde, it's actually going to back up and go back into the hoop, and then it won't leave until probably sometime in 2026. So now, as I mentioned, Uranus is moving into the sacred hoop with the Pleiades, and this hasn't happened since Uranus entered Gemini in 1941. It was in Gemini. It did a retrograde back and forth across the zero Gemini point in 1941 and 1942. And interestingly, during that time was the attack on Pearl Harbor. So we have these, and that brought the U.S. into World War II, and because we've been trying to stay out of it, doesn't mean that we're going to have another world war. Hopefully, that's not what we're creating. I think that we have maybe more awareness and an ability to create something different, that is more playful, that is more fun, that is revolutionary in ways that allow for us to really honor all the places on the wheel of life, to honor all the different expressions. And I think this Cancer new moon is here to help us do that. Also, Sedna just entered into the sacred hoop last year and is going to be there for a really long time because Sedna has um, a long passage through signs. It's 11,500 year orbit. Did a different video on that. So if you haven't seen that, I'll have to see if I can find that, but or maybe update it. Anyway, so check out the show notes and see what I've got there because I'll see what I can find. Anyway, the sacred hoop, this is just drawing it by straight lines, makes it look more like a shield. But here's the new moon. So the June solstice is right on this cross where these two cross, and the new moon is just past it, right at the foot of Castor. And then, of course, the moon is above, is out of bounds, outside the boundaries of the sun. And so we're in this amazing time of this powerful energizing of the sacred hoop and how we are energizing our intentions and so on. So I wanted to also kind of complete this with Black Elk's prophecy and also bring in White Buffalo Calf Woman and her prophecy and the sacred hoop. So it was White Buffalo Calf Woman that gave the Lakota the gift of knowledge about the sacred hoop. She helped them to understand it. And you can see up here, there's the sacred hoop of stars. And it comes from Lakota Star Knowledge, Studies in Lakota Stellar Theology book that is available. And then she taught them 7 sacred ways to pray and promised one day she would return. So when a white buffalo calf is born, it's a sign prayers are being heard and the promises of prophecy are being fulfilled. So the most recent white buffalo calf was on June 4th, 2024, that I'm aware of. I did look this up recently, but just before doing this video, so that's the one that I could find. It was in Yellowstone National Park, Larimore Valley, and this white buffalo calf was named Wankan, which means return sacred in Lakota. And there was, um, the number of white buffalo calf that are white buffalo that are actually adults now that have been around for a while has grown to about 50 since the first one, 1933, there were only about 500 buffalo in the world. And then in 1994, there was another one that was born that is known. These are the ones that I could track down and are known. And today there's about 500,000 buffalo with about 50 white buffaloes. So this is happening. Now, Black Elk had a vision of the sacred hoop, bringing all nations, all people back into harmony with each other in 7 generations from the time of the massacre at Wounded Knee in 1890. So if we look at that 7 generations, it would be around 2030. So we're approaching that. Depends on how you calculate generations. So that's why I say around 2030. And the time, this is the amount of time that's needed to heal the wounds and trauma of that event. And so this comes from Black Elk's book, Black Elk Speaks. And he said, and I saw the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that make one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. And I imagine with this new moon in the sacred hoop of stars, with Jupiter in the sacred hoop of stars, with Uranus having just entered or having, yeah, it's been there for a little while at the 29 degrees Taurus point, but at the entrance point to the sacred hoop of stars, we have revolutionary possibilities, expanding vision. Jupiter and Uranus are similar in that they are all about expansion of vision. And some would say Uranus is a higher octave of Jupiter. But we've got all this energy, these planetary energies in this part of the sky that suggests that we really can create a global planetary family in ways that haven't been done before, or at least that we don't remember having been done before. So I'm hoping that we can all join together with our intentions for the new moon to create a way of being that is safe for everyone, supportive for everyone, and is where we can feel accepted and valued for who we are as we are, and not who somebody thinks we should be, or some, I don't know, king or some dominator person in some government position thinks people should be, that we get to be and we can support each other in being authentically who we are in a place of love, acceptance, and safety. Aho.